This video response is going to go out to TBH ICARE, and that's because you routinely try to assist people on Instagram who regularly try to place themselves in fatal peril. And the first thing I would like to say is that I have no problem with you telling people that you love them. That's a very nice thing you do on a regular basis, and I applaud you for that. However, I do have a couple of problems with you not doing more than just telling people that you care. And yes, there is more that you can do than just tell people that you love them. Here's my first problem. The first problem is how you confine your efforts to high school students. Let me tell you something. There are just as many adults that face this kind of situation as there are to high school students. The only thing is that adults face even more problems than the high schoolers. Let me illustrate. Not only do adults have to worry about good grades, but they also have to worry about establishing a home for themselves, their spouses, and eventually their children. They also have to worry about paying bills and finding gainful employment. And they also have to worry about retirement and medical care for themselves and for their families. That's a lot to put on anybody's plate. And yes, there are some parents, not a lot of them, but there are some parents that are so eager to get their adult children out of their houses that as soon as they turn 18, they're out the door. And that's a tremendous pressure on these kids. And believe me, as old as I am, I would call any 18-year-old right now a kid. Really, I would. Because they have no idea when they first walk out of that house and they go to their college dorm or they find an apartment somewhere or something like that. They don't really have that concept yet of what real life is like. As soon as it hits them like a ton of bricks. And that's really tough. And if they don't have loving parents to help them get used to that new situation, they can topple like a deck of cards. Okay? So, that's the first problem. You've really kind of confined yourself to high school students. What about the ones that aren't high school anymore and they're just starting out in the world? They're young adults. Here they're trying to keep up the good grades in college, but then they're trying to find themselves a decent paying job, and they're trying to establish a home for what their future family. And then, let's not forget, they're trying to get married too. All that all at once. That's a lot of stress. There's a lot of people that crumble like decks of cards when they have to face that much stress. So that's problem number one. And problem number two is just telling them that you love them and not doing anything else for them. Let me tell you something. That doesn't change their situation. It doesn't make their situation any better. There's only one way to make their situation any better. And that is to accelerate their learning capacity. If you accelerate their learning capacity, and I have shown people how to do this on my YouTube channel for a long time now, if you show them how to accelerate their learning capacity, they don't have to worry about their good grades anymore. And on top of that, because they're making good grades, higher paying gainful employment is just made available to them. So they don't really have to hunt for a job anymore. The jobs start hunting for them. So that's a second pressure off their backs. And with those two pressures off their backs, and considering the fact that they now have this higher education, they can understand medical costs, retirement, and they can pattern themselves into a routine life. They will have an easier time finding a proper apartment or maybe a first house. And their social skills will escalate in a upward direction. So they'll have little problem finding a spouse. A decent spouse, one that will stay with them through the rough courses. Okay? And they will be able to quickly and easily integrate children into all this equation. So you see, an accelerated learning capacity can solve a lot of this problem. It takes a lot of the burden off their back, because they're able to quickly compensate for the new situation that they're in. So that is something else you can do. You can say, look, there's this guy out there, he's known as the speed learner, and he teaches people how to have an accelerated learning capacity so they can easily and quickly compensate for all these new situations that come into play. So I implore you and encourage you to tell people about my YouTube channel and say, look, this guy can help you get out of your big mess. It doesn't have to overwhelm you like a tidal wave. He'll work with you until it doesn't happen that way anymore. That's what my YouTube channel is all about. So there is something more you can do. And I noticed you kind of booted me off. I would encourage you, because we have to deal with these kids just as much as we have to deal with the high schoolers, even more so with them. I would encourage you and implore you to add me back on and to work with me so we can help these people out. They need help, and they need it now. I don't want to see any more of them end up in the morgue. It's not necessary, it's not needed, and my solution will work perfectly well. So, 1, don't limit yourself solely to high schoolers. 2, utilize this YouTube channel as a means to get them out of this overwhelming tidal wave tsunami type situation. Because what I do here really can change their situation and make it better for them. And maybe they'll be less likely to put themselves or to place themselves in fatal peril. So, if you believe as I do, by all means get back in contact with me, and we'll work together to try to get these people out of these perilous situations. Alright, well, that's all I've got to say for this evening. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can go ahead and leave them down here below. I will tell you more in a future video. Stay tuned.